You guys, these might blow your mind. Brace yourselves, but it's
Injury to
another
people who
politician
had
actually
already
doing
been
their
victims.
job.
Nothing came out about me.
We will continue to follow the law.
There's no credible information.
I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
They all lied about the Epstein files, from Donald Trump to Pam Bondi to Kash Patel to Howard Lutnick and a cast of others. They are all a pack of liars. Remember this from the very beginning. This is Pam Bondi talking about how she has the Epstein client list on her desk. Here she is.
And this is something Donald Trump has talked about. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
And not long thereafter, this was at the White House. Well, the celebration was premature for many reasons, in part because most of these files were already public information.
So one time I'm going to interrupt. I think that was a psyop, and I think they screwed up because there was one person there who wasn't bought and paid for by the Trump administration. And that person sounded the alarm. The rest of them all played dumb. The other person went outside, did not pose in front of the camera, but opened up that damn binder and saw it was a big effing slap in the face joke.
But more than that, Pam Bondi neglected to say that the files they were releasing at that time were part of 6 million documents. This was a tiny fraction of the Epstein files. So part of the reason Bondi claimed they didn't release more files at that time was she said they wanted to be very careful not to include the names or identities of victims when they released the files.
We will continue to follow the law with maximum transparency while protecting victims.
Well, they got that wrong too, because when they were finally compelled by law, and Congress passed a bipartisan law to compel the release of the Epstein files, they trickled them out, but still didn't redact all of the victims' names. In fact, some victims appeared over and over and over again in these files, including photographs, nude photographs with the faces of young girls released by the Trump administration, a scandalous injury to people who had already been victimized. Another broken promise by Pam Bondi. Now, even as they failed to redact the victims' names, there's increasing evidence that what they did redact were the names and identities of some of the perpetrators. This is a 2014 email to Jeffrey Epstein from Redacted saying, "Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty." This is from 2018. A redacted sender emails Epstein, quote, "I found at least 3 very good young poor, but we were so tired." There's further indication in this email about the subject matter when it says this: "Meet this one, not the beauty queen, but both likes her a lot." Another says she's like Lolita from Nabokov's novel, where the email goes on to say femme miniature and has a little smiley face. And if you haven't read Lolita, it's about a middle-aged man falling in love with a 12-year-old. That's what the email is addressing. Now, these are redacted. The senders are redacted. The identities are redacted. Why are they redacted?
Captain Redacted.
This is the question. Now, some of the members of the House of Representatives have already had the chance to go see redactions at the Justice Department, and they've raised serious questions about who is being protected here.
And there are 6 men, some of them with their photographs, that have been redacted, and there's no explanation why those people were redacted. And
as a result of just those first visits to the Justice Department, some of these redactions are being unredacted. But here's the thing. They're inviting members of Congress to go review these 6 million documents, but prohibiting them from taking any kind of recording device, prohibiting their staff from being present. All you're allowed to do when you review the documents is take notes by hand. This is designed to make it impossible to really scrutinize these documents, these redactions. It would take years and years and years to go through them all in such a laborious manner, and that is deliberate. It's not about protecting victims here, it's about protecting perpetrators. So how do we square what we've already seen in these documents with the testimony of people like Kash Patel? You might remember Kash Patel appearing before the Judiciary Committee. Here he's asked by Senator John Kennedy, a Republican, about who Epstein trafficked minors to. And Patel's answer is shocking. He makes the absurd claim that Epstein wasn't trafficking minors to anyone except Epstein.
There's no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay.
Now, just to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding his answers to Senator Kennedy, I probed him further and only got further evasions. But the conclusion was still the same. Apparently, Epstein's client list had only one name on it, and it was Epstein. That's what Kash Patel would have us believe. So is it your testimony today that in all the Epstein files, that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked no one to anyone but himself? Is that your testimony, Mr.
I never
Patel?
said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic anyone else.
Did he traffic any young woman to someone other than himself? That was Mr. Kennedy's question,
And
Senator
I
Kennedy's
said
question.
the information that 3 administrations have had access to
I'm
have
asking
made determinations that there are no investigative leads that were credible to prosecute and investigate any others. I'm specifically
I'm asking
stating
you whether
we
it's
were
your
working on.
testimony today.
Well, you just read
that
it, and I said it
I-
10 minutes ago, so let the record reflect my testimony.
I just want to, of course, this is the same Kash Patel who, prior to becoming FBI director, said that the FBI director had the client list, had the black book, basically on his desk. Here he is.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
black book?
FBI.
But who? That is that. I mean,
Oh,
there's
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
So one thing that hasn't changed, Kash Patel was a liar then, he is a liar now, and he continues to cover up for the perpetrators. Let's look at another one of these liars, and that is Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. So Lutnick, you might remember, last year said that he met Epstein at his house, which is very close or next door to Lutnick's own house. And he was so appalled by this guy, this creepy guy, he wanted absolutely nothing more to do with him.
And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Well, then some of the files come out, and what do they reveal? They reveal that Lutnick went into business deals with Epstein, that Lutnick brought his family to Epstein Island. In fact, it even came out in the Epstein files that Lutnick left his phone at the Epsteins and had to be returned to him in 2011. What a pack of lies. I've called for his resignation. If he's doing business with this pedophile, he shouldn't be doing business as the United States Commerce Secretary. Now, Lutnick testified in the Senate today, and look at him trying to evade the questioning. Look at him trying to explain away his previous lies about his relationship with Epstein.
I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with that person.
Did you, in fact, make the visit to Jeffrey Epstein's private island?
I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. I had another couple they were there as well with their children, and we had lunch on the island.
This was, of course, after the time when Lutnick said he wanted nothing more to do with Jeffrey Epstein, but somehow he had a lot more to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Which brings us to the liar in chief, President Donald J. Trump. What's his role in all of this? Well, he was asked prior to taking office whether he would support the release of the Epstein files, and although he equivocated a bit, he was in favor of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
Now, after becoming president, it was very different. He pushed back. He said there's nothing to see here. And when legislation was introduced on a bipartisan basis to require the disclosure of these files, he went into all-out mode to try to stop it, even so far as calling people who had signed a discharge petition in the House to compel a vote to release the Epstein files. When he was unsuccessful, when that bill passed overwhelmingly, he signed it very begrudgingly. And we can see why. Because notwithstanding the president's claim that these files somehow absolve him, they do anything but. There are serious accusations made against the president in these files. They will need to be looked into. But nevertheless, they do not absolve Donald Trump. After all, this is someone who previously claimed that the reason he parted company with Jeffrey Epstein was because Epstein was stealing women, young women from Mar-a-Lago.
People were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone.
One of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Jeffrey?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. He stole her.
But he now says that he wants the country to move on. He admitted to, apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene that his friends might get hurt with these releases, and he wants the country to move on.
And when Greene said to the president, why won't you allow this? Why won't you permit this to be released? Trump said this, quote, "My friends will get hurt," focusing on powerful men, not the victims.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Really. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
Well, the country is not going to move on. Not until that law is followed, not until these files are released unredacted, at least as far as the perpetrators are concerned. There is going to be no let up until there is some justice. And that justice must begin with transparency. So I don't really care whether the president's friends are going to get hurt. What I care about is the fact that so many victims were hurt. And so many victims were hurt again when the Justice Department so callously pushed out information about them and not the perpetrators. So we're going to keep the pressure on until these files are released, until the law is observed, and until the victims get a measure of justice.
If the Democrats were smart, they'd run Schiff and Khan for 2028. But they're not. If we were smart, we wouldn't vote Republican or Democrat ever again. Speaking of fake Jews. If the Democrats are smart, they'll run Schiff and Khan. They're not, though. And if we were smart, we wouldn't vote Democrat or Republican ever again. Speaking of fake Jews.